Mr. Roy, seek recognition.
Move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized.
Well, as the gentlelady on the other side of the aisle knows, I too live in Texas. Raised my son, daughter to respect firearms. We shoot them frequently on our property. We shoot semi-automatic weapons on my property. I teach my children how to use them safely. I teach them what they're used for, why we have the ability to have firearms. And yes, we use it for hunting. My son shot his first deer.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Briefly.
Yeah, very question. What do you use semi-automatic weapons for?
I use semi-automatic weapons to kill hogs. I use semi-automatic weapons for sport and shooting on our property, but I also have semi-automatic weapons, and I'm getting to the point.
Thank you.
Because a semi-automatic weapon is a weapon that you can use for self-defense. It is a semi-automatic weapon that you can use to defend yourself against home invaders, but also, let's be clear, against tyranny. The gentlelady is talking about the Second Amendment in the context of hunting, as if my rights are reduced in the Constitution to a 410 or a single shot or lever action 22, as if that was what was expressly put forth as how we're supposed to be defending ourselves.
Gentleman yield again?
And let me go ahead and finish my time, sir, unless we want to add more time.
Very, very quickly, question.
I need more time. Will the gentleman give me another 30 seconds?
Yes.
I'll yield.
You said that you could use a semi-automatic weapon to fight tyranny.
Sure.
You mean you'd use it against American troops?
The very existence of the Second Amendment is designed purposefully to empower the people to be able to resist the force of tyranny used against them to step over their natural rights given to them by God. That is why the Second Amendment exists. That is very specifically why the Second Amendment exists. And let's be very clear about that. Let's rewind the clock a little bit, as I know at least several justices have written in Supreme Court opinions, but about what life looked like in the 19th century and what the government was doing to remove the ability of either slave owners or, importantly, freed blacks, or importantly, whites who even stood up in defense of blacks or against slavery, and the efforts by the South and the efforts by the strong arm of government to remove their ability to have firearms. That is an absolute, undeniable, documented, historic fact in our country. As written by Robert Verbruggen in the National Review, and I'm happy to submit this to the record without objection, he writes, "The heart of the problem is that in an effort to stave off rebellion and maintain the racial caste structure that had developed under slavery, state and local governments refused to respect freedmen's constitutional rights. Crucial to the South's efforts were gun control laws that applied to blacks and blacks alone. This does not show that," and it goes on further, I'm going to take too longer, where it goes into the South's campaign against black gun ownership, not surprisingly, began long before the Civil War. Two slave rebellions in the 1820s stoked whites' fears, and in response, many legislatures amended their laws prohibiting slaves from carrying firearms to apply the prohibition to free blacks as well. When the government, and he writes further, and I agree with this, when the government has the ability to forbid gun ownership, it has the ability to render groups it dislikes helpless to defend themselves, regardless of whether modern gun control accomplishes its purpose of reducing crime. And for the record, there is no evidence it does. And I agree with that as well. This is so inherent to the very conversation we're having. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle just blithely dismiss due process. A former judge even saying, arguments about due process, you have the opportunity to be heard after. You have the opportunity to be heard after your rights have been taken away. That's the key issue here. We are absolutely destroying the bedrock principle that your rights are given to you by God and that you can't just have to go to the government to ask permission to exercise those rights. And when
Would the gentleman yield for a question? Could I ask Mr. Roy a question? Would you yield for a second?
I need to finish up my time. I already have a few seconds left over from the chairman. I'm happy to engage with you in colloquies later. And I would point out that my colleague from Maryland, again, just sort of rolled over the fact that it was very expressed in the Supreme Court's ruling that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm unconnected with service in a militia. My colleagues like to continually try to connect that to militia service, but we all know that what a militia looked like in 1775 and 1776. I appreciate that the chairman gave me a little extra time in light of our exchange and questioning. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back for what purpose?
Holding on to the audio visual of the transcript. I mean, that's just my understanding. I understand you're saying we're splitting hairs here, but hey, Ms. Hageman?
Yes, a couple of things. To conflate the outcome of the two cases between Hunter Biden and President Trump is an absolute absurdity. It's also an absurdity to claim that the outcome in one case with Hunter Biden being convicted today is reflective of the viability or legality of what happened in New York is also absolutely absurd. So I wanted to I wanted to point that out.
Can you explain
to say
why?
That these two, I think that the facts are very clear in the record in terms of the differences between the two cases. And
To
how
the
they
juries, it
handle
was very
and the
clear.
legal- and the legal basis for
Yeah,
it.
and in both cases,
asking about the privilege and waiver. And it seems as though my colleagues on the other side believe that a privilege or a waiver is based upon a word-by-word basis, and the extent to which they may have waived any kind of a claim of privilege for the words that were included in the transcript, they would still be able to claim a privilege for the words that were left out, and that's what we're trying to get to with the audio, is also a legal absurdity. That is not the way that privilege or waiver either one work. What it is when you waive the subject matter, then you waive the subject matter. You have waived your ability to claim a privilege for those issues. You're not able to use privilege as both a sword and a shield and say, well, I'm going to release these 4 words, but I'm not going to release these 16 words. These 16 words are privileged, but these 4 words I will give to you, and there's a waiver. What a court would rule in that regard is, to the extent the 16 words relate to the 4 words, it's a waiver of the entire thing, because they're not going to allow you to use privilege as both a sword and a shield, which is what my colleagues on the other side seem to imply. I'd like to read 3 quotes from the Her report that put the issue that you have raised, Mr. Reschenthaler, front and center here about Mr. Biden's cognitive abilities and why the audio is so critically important. Quote, Mr. Biden's memory was significantly limited both during his recorded interviews with the ghostwriter in 2017 and in his interview with our office in 2023. That's on page 5, I believe. Quote, we have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview with him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That is on page 6. Similar quote on page 219 of the report. And finally, Mr. Biden's memory also appeared to have significant limitations, both at the time he spoke to Zwanitzer in 2017, as evidenced by their recorded conversations, and today as evidenced by his recorded interview with our office. That's at page 207. I'd like to bring this back to actually what the purpose of this hearing is, which is our oversight responsibilities, both as the Judiciary Committee as well as the Oversight Committee. That's what this is all about. And I would say it's very obvious that the point of the other side is to deflect attention. They want to deflect attention from the fact that Joe Biden had unlawfully kept classified materials and shared them with his ghostwriter, for example. They want to deflect attention from the fact that clearly the audio and the written transcript are different, and that those differences might be incredibly significant in terms of our oversight responsibilities. It's clear under the Constitution, it's clear under the case law that judiciary and oversight have the authority to obtain information such as this in carrying out our responsibilities as the legislative branch. That is really the only issue that is before this committee today. All this other nonsense, all this other noise, all these other words that are being thrown against the wall are entirely irrelevant as to whether we're entitled to this information, and if so, by withholding it, should Merrick Garland be held in contempt of Congress? And the fact is that he should, because there is no executive privilege. even regardless of the transcript, there is no executive privilege for the information we're seeking, number one. And number two, if there was, it has been waived and we're entitled to receive the information, the audio that we have requested. With that, I yield back.
Thanks, Ms. Hageman. Mr. Nadler?
I want to point out that the Her report, contrary to the insinuations of the gentlelady from Wyoming, repeatedly states that he did not indict Biden because the evidence of a crime just did not exist. Some sample quotes on page 4 of the Her report, quote, "We do not believe evidence is sufficient to indict," unquote. Page 6, there are, quote, "innocent explanations," unquote, as to why Biden retained classified documents. Page 8, "We do not, however, believe this evidence would meet the government's burden at trial," close quote. As I said before, that is why the special prosecutor declined to indict President Biden, as he states here, and that is why any reference to the president's alleged cognitive ability is gratuitous, because there's really nothing to do with this. I would like, however, to the gentlelady from Wyoming a moment ago said that there were clear differences between the way the Hunter Biden trial was conducted and the legitimacy of that trial and the illegitimacy of the Donald Trump trial in New York. Maybe she'd enlighten us as to the difference.
I'd be happy to, but I do not understand why that would be at all relevant to the discussion that we're having today. But I'm happy to have that debate with you any day of the week. But I just don't think that that's relevant to what we're discussing.
Well, you brought it up. So
I mean, we can start with
You said it was
the
absurd.
judge.
Wait, hold on, Ms. Hageman.
We can start with the judge that was handpicked rather than randomly chosen, which is typical in most of your court cases. You can talk about the fact that you talked about unanimity of verdict. We don't even know what the verdict was at this point in terms of what he was allegedly convicted of unanimously. We can talk about the fact that almost every single ruling that was made by Judge Merchan in New York was against the defense, despite the fact that when you're dealing with a criminal case, there's either typically much more of a balance, or in fact to ensure that the prosecution actually meets its burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt, most of the rulings would be in favor of the criminal defendant, not in favor of the prosecution. It's in the fact that the expert witness, who is the former head of the Federal Election Commission, was excluded from testifying as an expert witness in the case in New York, despite the fact that he has been qualified as an expert witness to testify on these matters throughout the entire United States. It is the fact that there were other witnesses that were excluded. There was substantial evidence, prejudicial evidence, that was admitted during the course of the trial. And then when you look at what happened with Hunter Biden, the prosecution was very precise, very specific about the nature of the statute that was at issue and how he violated it. And then they brought in the evidence from the family members, the ex-wife, the girlfriend, the Beau's widow, the young girlfriend, all of the testimony, him reading the book, all of the testimony. The evidence was overwhelming that Hunter Biden had violated the specific statute at issue. So there's dramatic differences in terms of how the New York case was handled versus how the case against Hunter Biden was handled. If you'd like to spend another 3 or 4 hours, we can go outside and I can give you additional evidence to that effect.
All right, I just want to refocus. So I started the line of questions with this. It looks like I'm going to end it with this. I really think we've got to refocus everything on the one question that's before us, and that is, can the executive branch defy a subpoena that is lawfully issued and is also valid? I would make the argument that the answer to that is no, and I think that's the one issue. But the chairman has been incredibly generous with his time to me, so I'm going to go ahead and yield back. But I'd like to thank all the witnesses for being here.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, thanks. The gentleman, the gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized for questions.
Thank you. We've covered a lot.
Thank you. Secretary Duffy, as recently as last week, you again attacked the MTA, claiming there's a surge in subway assaults and accusing the agency of withholding information. But many of your statements misrepresent the facts and ignore documentation already provided to your department. I want to address some of those claims directly. First, are you aware that major crime in the transit system, including assaults, is down 3% since last year and down 8% since 2019?
Well, I would say
That's a yes or no question.
well, no, that's wrong. The assaults that we've seen are up 60% with MTA in the system
Excuse me.
since 2019.
Why do you continue to ignore this and lie about this in your public comments?
My question, why do you continue to lie about people being lit on fire in subways or pushed in front of trains? You should be fighting to make sure your subways are safe.
Our subways
You
are...
want people to
our
ride subways, let's
our-
make subways safe. We'll fund
Reclaiming
them.
my time. Our subways are safe, and I gave you the statistics.
They're wrong.
Second of all, you claimed earlier this year that there was no study of traffic impacts before the implementation of the congestion relief program. Are you aware that in 2023, your office received a nearly 4,000-page environmental assessment that thoroughly analyzed traffic patterns, transit operations, and environmental impacts in detail?
Are you aware that your governor did not want to move
I
forward
asked if your
with
question, are you aware that you
congestion
got,
pricing?
are you aware
because you
that,
didn't want the electorate
excuse me,
to know that?
answer my question, are you
before
aware that
November?
you got that 4,000-page environmental assessment?
That went to the last
Yes or no?
To the last administration, they got it.
You got it. If so, why do you continue to deny its existence?
I haven't denied any existence.
Okay.
That's not-
Secretary
our-
Duffy,
our-
as you know,
our-
your attempt to
but
revoke
you're you're mischaracterizing what my complaint has been. That our roads are not for the elitists, the ones who have money or someone pays for their vehicle to drive into a cordoned area. I believe everyone
All right,
has
that's
a
my
right
next-
to use our roads. So if
Secretary-
you can't afford because
Secretary
you're poor,
Duffy, as
why
you
should
know-
you be excluded from driving into the city of New
Reclaiming
York?
my time, Mr. Secretary, as you know, your attempt to revoke the MTA's congestion pricing approval came after the program had already undergone a full NEPA review and was formally cleared by the Federal Highway Administration. Can you identify a single precedent under any Republican or Democratic administration for unilaterally rescinding approval of a program like this after it completed the full environmental review process?
So the example is that you have never had a cordon pricing situation like
Oh,
this.
yes,
where
there have
only
been.
the elites,
What do you call the New Jersey Turnpike?
There's a road right next to it. Every road we have, you can take
Secretary
an
Duffy,
additional
why
road
do you
to
continue
access
to
your
lie
point
about
of
New York
destination.
City?
You're lying. Don't call me a liar here.
I'm
This is
calling
the
you a
one-
liar because
this
you've
is the
lied
one-
continually.
This is the one area where you have to pay $9 every single day to access Manhattan. That doesn't exist anywhere else.
Every single program where you have tolled highways is under the same
Why don't we
program.
fight for the people who can't afford to pay that pricing? Why shouldn't everyone have access to the city? And if you're going to force people into a subway, make sure it's safe. Very simple.
It's safe. I gave you the statistics.
I gave you the stats.
Well, your statistics are wrong.
Time has expired.
Quick question, very quick question. Zoran Mamdani,
Yes.
are you going to support him?
Yes.
You are. What do you make of some of the folks in your party who are concerned about his politics?
Well, he's very novel. He's very left-wing. Some people are going to be concerned. I do not believe he's anti-Semitic, as some people say.
Did you endorse him in the primary, or were you?
No, I did not.
Endorse him.
No, I endorsed Scott, and I said vote second for Brad Lander.
I mean, what do you make of what does it say about where your party is right now to nominate a socialist Democrat as the mayor of New York City?
I think it shows that there's a lot of ferment in the party, a lot of dissatisfaction with where the party and the country and the city are.
And then what does it say about just how far left your party has gone?
Well, that remains to be seen.
What do you mean?
Well, we don't know how far the party's going to go. This is one election for one person.
I appreciate it. And some members like Laura Gillen says she can't get behind him because is it going to cause a division within your party?
I'm sure people go in different directions. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it we'll see. I can't say on that.
That's fine. Okay. All right.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After that 5 minutes, I was starting to get a little sleepy. I would like to yield my time to Mr. Vandrew.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. And here we go again. So the gentlemen, my friends from Tennessee and California and Maryland, they want us not to have our eye on the ball. They want us to look, and we talked about this before in this committee, the shiny object over here. When you're really in trouble on the other side of the aisle, when you've really got a problem, let's go after Donald Trump. Let's make it a campaign stump speech. Let's talk about what a bad guy is. Let's talk about all these different issues. That's not why we're here. That's it. Again, if we want to have a separate debate, a colloquy, a discussion, formal, informal, we'll do it, man. I'm ready to go at it. I think most of us here are. But that is not the issue. The issue is this committee feels that it needs an audio transcript because the charges, the concerns are so serious. I want everybody to understand, we're either saying that our current president is cognitively impaired, incompetent, unable to stand trial, even though he broke the law. So the Department of Justice decides that they won't go after him for those reasons. And if that's true, we need to hear the audio tape. You're going to be able to understand if he truly is that cognitively impaired, if he truly has those problems, if he cannot deal with these issues, if he didn't know what he is doing. We are going to learn a lot more. And by the way, if it's no big deal, as the other side says, because we have the transcripts, well, we do have the transcripts, so why do you care so much about us getting the audio? What's the big deal?
The gentleman yield for an answer?
I just want to finish this first. I will yield. We already have the transcript, so why don't we have the audio? Because we can find out whether he is in that much trouble, if the country is in that much trouble. This has got nothing to do with what's going on in New York. This has to do with what's going on right here in the White House in Washington, D.C. with this president. Or if he is not cognitively impaired, if he is with it, if he is capable, then he broke the law as vice president and as a U.S. senator, not allowed to take these classified materials out, kept them in a garage by his home next to a collapsed dog kennel, and then used them. I want everybody to understand that. Then used them, read them to his ghostwriter to use in his multi-million-dollar book deal. Was he competent? Did he know what he was doing when he made this deal and used these papers to make money on the presidency? That's what we need to know. That's why we're going through all this. It's got nothing to do with the other stuff. And that's what we need to find out.
Gentleman yield now.
And that's why I will, in one moment. And that's why we're having this discussion. Because this committee has an oversight responsibility and needs to know that. But it's not only the committee. Most importantly, the American people need to know it. We need to know if we have an incompetent, incoherent president, or if we have a president that is being helped through the two-tier system of justice, again, just like they tried to help his son. Justice for thee, not for me. God help us, the American people, whomever are watching and listening to this, don't have those opportunities, but he keeps getting them over and over again. Which is it? I know it's a bad spot for you folks. I get it. It's a really uncomfortable place to be. But we need to find out the truth. And I yield to the gentleman from Cal. Actually, I'll yield to you, the gentleman from California.
Thank you. I just want to comment the following. The special prosecutor decided that there was no reason to prosecute for his own good reasons. He stated them in his report. He made what I regard as a gratuitous smear of the president by his comment on cognitive impairment. We will see. We don't need the transcript to see if the president is cognitively impaired. The president speaks all the time. There are going to be two debates. The American people can decide whether the president is cognitively impaired. They can decide whether his opponent is cognitively impaired. They're going to see plenty of evidence of that in the debates and in the campaign. So we don't need the transcript to know whether the president is cognitively impaired or not. The evidence is going to be before the American people.
I thank
the gentleman for yielding.
I reclaim my time. And look, this doesn't have anything to do with the debates, so I get it, and I know everybody's going to enjoy them, me included. But this has to do with the actions that took place regarding classified materials. And either, as the special prosecutor said, he is cognitively impaired and unfit for trial, or he knowingly did this and made money off of it. I yield back to Mr. Nels. I think Mr. Nels yields back to me.
Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia.
I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. During Wednesday's Marathon House Judiciary Committee hearing, Chair Jerry Nadler and Jim Jordan debated about the nature of the Democratic Party. After speaking about how the Democrats have become a, quote, anti-racist party, Nadler said that if he were alive today, Abraham Lincoln would be a Democrat. Ohio Republican and frequent Nadler sparring partner Jim Jordan followed. He said the Democratic Party has betrayed its history supporting free speech, and he also voiced opposition to Democratic-backed legislation on court-related financial disclosures. Let's take a listen.
Coordinated amicus briefs. These same groups pour money into lobbying campaigns in order to support of the justices they want on the bench. The bill simply requires parties and amicus filers to disclose their financial connections to the justices, and it also requires amicus filers to disclose their major funders. This makes eminent sense so that the people of the United States can know who, in fact, is funding the amicus briefs and the viewpoints advanced in front of the Supreme Court.
Will the chairman yield?
No, I will not yield. In addition to which, I should like to say on a separate question that's been raised, and that is about the Republican and Democratic parties, though I don't think this is really terribly relevant to the amendment. But the fact is, it was stated by people on both sides of the aisle about the identity of the Republican and Democratic parties. Now, the fact is, the Democratic Party changed. The racist Democratic Party of the 19th century and of the early 20th century changed because of the Civil Rights Act. When the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1965, the racist Democrats reacted against that, and because Senator Goldwater opposed the Civil Rights Act, the racist Democrats became Republicans. And you can see this in the careers of people like Strom Thurmond, who began as a Democrat and ended up as a Republican, and George Wallace, the same. And the fact is that the parties changed. So Abraham Lincoln, were he alive today, would be a Democrat because the Republican Party, which started out as an anti-racist, anti-slavery party,
That's crazy.
it changed also. And today, the people who take the anti-racist view are known as Democrats. So that's just a history lesson. It's not of great importance to the worth of the amendment, but I thought I had to correct the history. And the amendment ought to be opposed because it is destructive of the purpose of the bill, which is salutary, which is to enable people to know who is funding amicus briefs and who is funding amicus briefs, on whose behalf they're filed, who are the real parties and interests. And I yield back.
Mr. Chairman.
Who else seeks? Does anyone else seek recognition?
Yes. Yes.
What purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
To rebut some of the crazy things you just said.
The gentleman strike the last word?
I do. Strike the last word.
Gentleman's
The
recognized.
Democrat Party sure has changed because the Democrat Party used to believe in the First Amendment and free speech. That's the big change. I mean, think about it. Disclose your donors so we can dox them. Disclose your donors so we can cancel them. Disclose your donors, your contributors, so we can protest at their homes. That's what everyone knows what this is about because we're watching it unfold as we speak. There are people at Supreme Court justice homes protesting as we speak. Barry Weiss had a great term. Barry Weiss, not on the right, actually center left, resigned from the New York Times because she said, if you engage in wrong speak, wrong think today, the mob, the cancel culture mob will come after you. And she used a great term. She said, you will face the digital Thunderdome. That's what this amendment's about. Putting people in the Thunderdome so all the left can go after them, intimidate them. This is all of, Mr. Johnson was right. This is about intimidation. This is about chilling free speech. And it's so consistent with what we've seen from the left over the last year and a half. Just a few months ago, we sat in this room, actually it was across the way, with the Attorney General, and we found out they were targeting parents. We just sent a letter to Mr. Garland today. We had a whistleblower come forward. Over 24 cases where they have targeted moms and dads. And now you file an amicus brief, and there's some people who supported that effort. The left's going to get a hold of their names. They're going to be at their homes protesting. They're going to do exactly what the IRS did 10 years ago to conservative groups. The IRS was sending out letters to conservative groups. Do you pray at your meeting? Who are your supporters? Do you have a pastor? I mean, this is craziness. I mean, think about in 2 weeks what we've seen from the left. In just 2 weeks, this is a scary 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, we learned there's a disinformation governance board formed at the Department of Homeland Security, run by Nina Jankowicz, who has all kinds of crazy ideas. Last week, there's a leak at the Supreme Court of a draft opinion, and protesters are at people's homes. And today, we have a bill that says, disclose your donors. This is as scary as the gentleman from North Carolina is right on target. It is a great amendment. We should, at a minimum, adopt this to safeguard where the Democrat Party used to be, which was in support of the First Amendment, not chilling free speech, but embracing the First Amendment free speech. And I'll yield to the gentleman from North Carolina, then to California.
I thank the gentleman. And, you know, it's interesting. The chairman has attempted to do this fiction about the party switching places. But again, what we've got here avoids all that because you're doing the same things.
Yep.
You did it in 1958 to the NAACP. You did it last year in California to people who are contributing to charities there. The Supreme Court both times said you are steamrolling people's First Amendment right of association. Can't do it.
The gentleman from New York, Mr. Durham, can you pull that microphone real close so everyone can hear what you say there? We appreciate that. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Durham, your report reads like a defense of the Trump campaign and an attack on Hillary Clinton because that's exactly what it is. Donald Trump wanted you to investigate the investigators to show the deep state conspiracy, but you never found one. Instead, you gave him and his MAGA Republicans the next best thing, someone else to blame for Donald Trump's problems. That's why you're here today, because the chairman and his colleagues need someone, anyone, to deflect from the mounting evidence of Trump's misconduct. Let me remind you that Donald Trump was federally indicted on 37 counts for mishandling classified information. 37 counts. That's why you're here today, not because of anything that happened in 2016. Ms. Durham, your investigation cost more than $6.5 million, involved the work of dozens of FBI employees and federal prosecutors, some of whom resigned in protest and took roughly 4 years to complete. Is that correct?
No.
It's not correct.
No, I mean, there were multiple parts of that.
Did it take 4 years to complete?
Correct.
Okay. And with all these resources and all these people you were sent to help you investigate the investigators, you only filed 3 criminal cases. You only brought 2 cases to trial, correct?
Correct.
And you lost all the cases you brought to trial, correct?
Correct.
In fact, 2 juries acquitted your defendants on all charges. And the one conviction that you obtained, the defendant pleaded guilty to a single count and never went to trial, correct?
Correct.
I will note that in that case, the primary investigative steps were all completed by Inspector General Horowitz. Perhaps you were better when it came to your report. From my reading, your report did not make any specific concrete recommendations to improve DOJ or FBI policies or procedures. In fact, your report repeatedly references the recommendations made by Inspector General Horowitz, almost all of which DOJ and FBI have already implemented. Again, your investigation lasted 4 years. 4 years and untold sums of money, and you still obtained only 1 conviction. You did produce a 300-page report, though, and that's given my Republican counterparts plenty of material to spin. Mr. Durham, George Papadopoulos was a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign in spring 2016. Isn't that right?
Correct.
And in May 2016, he told an Australian diplomat that the Trump team had received some kind of suggestion from Russia that it could assist this process with the anonymous release of information during the campaign that would be damaging to Secretary Clinton. This is a fact that came out during the Mueller investigation, and your investigation found nothing to dispute this fact, correct?
There's more detail to that in the report.
Did it find anything to dispute this report, to dispute this fact?
No.
Okay. On page 50 of your report, you wrote that on July 28, 2016, FBI headquarters received the Australian information that formed the basis for the opening of Crossfire Hurricane, correct?
Correct.
So this fantasy that some MAGA Republicans have created, where the investigation was started for any reason other than a Trump campaign operative bragging to Australian intelligence assets about Russian dirt that would damage Hillary Clinton, is not true. And when the FBI received that information, according to your report, it had not just the predication to investigate. There is no question, you wrote, that the FBI had an affirmative obligation to closely examine the Australian information. Isn't that right?
The FBI had an obligation to
So
examine.
that's
the
correct.
information.
So the origin of the investigation was not the Steele dossier. It was not Alpha Bank. It was a Trump aide's loose lips about his campaign's advanced view into a hack that had a profound effect on the 2016 election. That information supplied by the Australian government gave the FBI predication to begin an investigation. I'd like to discuss one more false conclusion about your report that's made its way into the MAGA Republican talking points. Some of my colleagues across the aisle have started calling this the, quote, Russia hoax. It's the theory that Russia did not actually interfere in the 2016 presidential election. That is patently false. In 2017, during the Trump administration, the Director of National Intelligence declassified a report on Russian activity in the 2016 election. You're aware of this report, correct?
Correct.
And in this report, the intelligence community found that, quote, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. We further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump, close quote. You did not dispute that Trump ordered an influence campaign to influence the 2016 election in your report, did you?
As I said, there was a real
Yes or
Russian
no?
threat.
No. Okay. Special Counsel Mueller indicted 12 Russian intelligence officers in July 2018. Isn't that right?
Correct.
The 12 intelligence officers were indicted for attacking the Clinton campaign. On page 55 of your report, you acknowledge that at a press conference in 2016, Donald Trump on camera said, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And 2 years later at the Helsinki
Regular order.
summit, Trump told the press that he believed Russian President Putin over his own intelligence officials when he told them Russia did not interfere during the 2016 elections season. I see my time has expired. I yield back.
Gentlemen, the witness can respond if he chooses to. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, from New York, Ranking Member Mr. Nadler is recognized.
I thank the chairman for yielding. Mr. Dunn, again, I want to express my sincerest condolences to you and your family, and I want to thank you for being here today. Judge Samaniego, I want to turn to you. Thank you so much for coming today. Having a witness who has grown up and lived on the border is so imperative. Your knowledge and lived experience are invaluable for policymakers here in Washington. Unfortunately, the Republican majority seems interested only in showboating. They continuously talk about a so-called Biden border crisis, even though this administration has actually kept in place numerous policies from the Trump administration that many of my colleagues and I have expressed concerns about. Judge Samaniego, in your testimony, you note safety and compassion are not mutually exclusive. I think this is a very important point. As Republican Representative Tony Gonzalez stated over the weekend, border security and immigration are two separate topics. One can be for a strong border security presence that prevents terrorists, fentanyls, and bad actors from entering our country, and one can be for welcoming future Americans in through the front door. Judge Samaniego, can you discuss how El Paso has balanced these two competing dynamics, ensuring the safety of its citizens while also being compassionate toward migrants?
Thank you. One of the things that we recognized is our collaboration. We're not reacting at this point. We've been working 4 years. Almost every Friday we meet with law enforcement, we meet with Border Patrol, the diocese, the NGOs, and we know that by doing what we do right, the whole nation benefits from that. If we do not process the migrants properly, then it falls on other cities. I think El Paso is extremely focused on the fact that we're not a community, but a part of a nation. And if we do not do the right things, then New York gets hit and other communities get hit simply by the fact that there's an unorganized process. Our strategy is really very organized, very compassionate, and making sure that we get individuals in the right place at the right time. And so when we have someone like from New York that comes to El Paso, the mayor, to tell us to help him through this process, obviously, that's why we're there. Our impact is not just on our community. Our impact, I believe, it's on the values of our Constitution, the values, in my case, as a Democrat, and we make sure that we're helping the rest of the country. We don't do things right, and I can guarantee you that the impact is going to fall on the other cities around the country.
Thank you. We keep hearing from our Republican colleagues that the border is open and that Biden caused this crisis. Could you comment on this?
Well, we don't see that. We process every individual that comes through. We make sure we coordinate. We get a lot of information. And I must emphasize, it was the Border Patrol and the federal government that asked us to step up as a community. And when we don't do the right things, it backs up their system. They start getting more and more people. The detention centers are extremely limited compared to what a community can do. So either you put the pressure on the federal government or you put the pressure on a community that has, almost 14 sites where we could get people sheltered. We can process people. Like I said, 35 to 40% are individuals that already have a sponsor, they have money, and they can move into the communities and other communities. We get a lot of calls of a lot of states and cities throughout the country that want migrants. And if we do the right thing and we process them, then we could get the migrants to them as well as to help our community. And we talk about three things. It's safety, which is extremely important for our community, humanitarianism, and the economy. We do not do things right, and I can guarantee you it impacts the entire economy. We've seen it when things begin strained and the movement of product doesn't come into the country. We get hit extremely hard. We get a lot of calls about not moving traffic properly. And we're one of the largest movers of products in the whole country. So we do things right, and I feel that everybody gains from our efforts.
Thank you. One of the topics you touched on in your testimony is the need for all levels of government and nonprofits to work together to effectively process the migrants who are crossing the border. Do you have a good relationship with Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection? And can you discuss how often you coordinate with them?
Every once a month we help. Well, one of the missing elements is that we don't get support from the state. And if we had the three, you need the local government, you need the federal government, and the missing component, and because of political reasons, we don't get that third part of the stool. And that is extremely, extremely important to us. We need their support. We don't need militia. We don't need policing. Our strategy has been extremely effective without using law enforcement, and we suffer tremendously by not having the proper support from the state government.
Thank you. My time has expired. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Recognize myself in opposition to the amendment. This amendment is not right because it says that this Congress disfavors the enactment of red flag laws, and yet this Congress, although this committee has reported out a red flag bill to the floor, the Congress has not yet voted, the House has not yet voted on it, and it's not ripe. The House will probably vote on it next week, at which point this amendment would be ripe. So I oppose this amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
it's not ripe at this time.
Will
yes,
the Chairman
I will
yield?
yield.
Mr. Chairman, I believe in the amendment it says in the states that the sense of Congress is that the Congress would disfavor the enactment of laws known as red flag laws in the states where they do currently exist. Does that alter the chairman's view of ripeness? Yield back to the chairman.
Well, I would oppose that. That's up to the states. It's not up to Congress to tell the states what to do in state law. That's even worse.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe the chairman has a different view of that when it comes to voting rights and a number of other matters. So I think when it comes to vindicating constitutional rights, we might have...
Reclaiming my time, protection of constitutional rights is a federal concern.
The Second Amendment is a constitutional right. So is due process.
Yep, they are. Who else seeks recognition?
Ms. McBath.
Does Mr. Bishop, for what purpose?